Joining us now to talk about the details is Michael Cannon, who's the Director of Public Care Policy at the Cato Institute. Michael, thank you for being with us today.
How are you, Fred?
I'm doing real great.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's get down into it. What did you see last night that got your attention in terms of the new, the good, the bad, the inconsistent, the errors, or consistency with your own plan that you have at Cato?
Well, not much of that. There's not much that was new. Most of it was the same old, which means that much of it was inconsistent. And I didn't see much to like, not much that's compatible with how I would like to reform health care and expand coverage to the uninsured and make coverage more affordable for everyone. Let's look first at what was new. He did extend an olive branch to Republicans, I think, with what in my estimation, is an overture that adopt what is the worst Republican health care proposal out there, which is federal medical malpractice liability reform. Mm-hmm. Now, I believe that we need to reform the medical malpractice liability system, but states are the ones that should be doing that. They have the power to do it. The Constitution does not give Congress the power to do that, and yet the one Republican reform he decided to adopt was the one that's the most unconstitutional and gives the federal government the most power.
But he said that he was going to dispatch the HHS secretary to set up some kind of a test project or something like that. He wasn't suggesting that he was going to put any malpractice reform in the bill, did he?
No. So it was a very milquetoast sort of offer anyway, and really it's just sort of window dressing. I don't really think that there's anything is going to come of that. And the reason is what Howard Dean said when he was speaking in Virginia a week or so ago. Howard Dean told an audience that the reason that there is no tort reform in the health care reform bill is because that would upset the trial lawyers, and they'll kill the bill.
Right.
So if the president were to give Republicans what they want, it wouldn't gain him any support. It would probably lose him support.
Mm-hmm. Michael, I'm sorry, just 1 second. For those of us who aren't as adept at all you all, when you say that trial lawyers are going to kill the bill, how does a trial lawyer bar, how do they kill the bill? How does that work in Washington?
Well, what they do, the trial bar, and I don't mean, I think that I don't think that they would be wrong in this instance. I actually think they would be right. What they would do is they have a lot of influence with the Democratic Party. They give a lot of money to Democratic candidates. They have a PAC, I believe, and so what they would do is they would lobby the members that they have supported and say, look, this is a really bad idea. And Democratic members would then either refuse to support those provisions, or some of them would probably even vote against the bill if it included those provisions.
Exactly.
When they talk about a demonstration project on that point, Michael, isn't it ironic that we already have demonstration projects? They're called state projects. States like California, states like Texas, states like, I believe, Mississippi have all done malpractice reform in those states?
That's exactly the point. We have these laboratories of democracy already, and they're called the states. And so we don't need the federal government encouraging states to do things they already have the power to do.
So what troubled you the most about the speech last night?
Well, what troubled me the most is that nothing really changed. I mean, the president went out there and took an unpopular plan and said, I really, really want this plan. And I'm a popular person, so I wanted that popularity to translate into the plan. But he didn't make any substantive changes. He said the same things about the government option that he's been saying before. He said the same thing about health care costs that he said before, which, by the way, is untrue and no one believes. He said the same thing about things about preventive care, which were untrue and no one believes, abortion, immigration. And so the thing is about health care. The president is a very popular person, and personally, I like him. I'd like to, share an awkward beer with him on the White House lawn somewhere sometime. Mm-hmm. But the healthcare issue is a very visceral issue for people. So if people think that you are going to take something away from them, or if they think you're not shooting straight, then they're not going to care. The fact that they like you isn't going to help you at all, because healthcare is too important to people. too important to take a gamble on, oh, just trust me, especially when everything else that the voters are seeing says that what President Obama is saying is either misleading or just flat out false.
Michael, isn't it true that you can like a person and still not be willing to trust them with the most important things in your life?
Just as it is true that you can want to reform health care and oppose the president's proposal to reform health care.
You mentioned the cost issue. To me, that was one of the most glaring deficiencies, and I kind of put it as we'll see whether or not the American people buy this. Over the next several days, I kind of put this as an IQ test for the American people as to whether or not they buy this. He is essentially, isn't he, saying that they can pay for most of this $900 billion through cutting out waste.
Well, that raises a couple interesting questions. One of them is if the president can find $600 billion worth of waste in existing government programs, why does he want to create another government program? And if the government creates that kind of waste, why should we believe him that the government's going to get rid of it? But the biggest problem that I have with these numbers that are being thrown around in Washington, $1 trillion, $1.6 trillion, $900 billion, which sounds small all of a sudden.
Nowadays.
Yeah. My biggest problem with those numbers is all the gimmicks that they're using to hide the actual cost of the bill. Because the numbers that they're throwing out right now are just a fraction of the total cost, because they've done so much to hide the cost. And you've served in the Senate. You know that if there's a 10-year budget window and you can only spend $1 trillion in that 10 years, well, you don't want to create a $100 billion program in the first year and have that going every year. What they're going to try to do is they're going to delay the implementation of the program until the 6th year, because then they can get a $200 billion program and have it run for only 5 years in that window. So they do a lot of that, delaying the implementation of these
absolute gamesmanship. Nobody talks about the out years, and all the experts say that this thing's going to skyrocket past the 10-year window.
But the biggest gimmick is what they did in Massachusetts, and what they're trying to do at the federal level. By making health insurance compulsory for individuals and requiring employers to offer health insurance, what they're doing is they're imposing a tax on people without the money ever entering the federal treasury. And so that tax is part of the cost of this bill, but it doesn't show up in the federal budget. It doesn't show up in that $1 trillion that they're talking about. And so what happened in Massachusetts is only 20% of the cost of their compulsory health insurance scheme shows up in the state budget. Another 60% is private sector spending that the government mandated. So those are those taxes.
And even at that, they've got runaway spending that they can't control up there.
Absolutely. And so even to deal with just the 20% of the cost that the state has to come up with, they're raising taxes like crazy. They're raising taxes on tobacco and on employers and on insurance. And
all you got to do is take a look at Massachusetts, take a look at Tennessee, take a look at Maine. Michael Cannon, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it. It's very helpful.